37-year-old Cari Farver was the sort of person you noticed when she walked into a room. She had a laugh that was infectious and a smile that made people feel welcome. She lit up a room, her friend Amy Long would later say. You couldn't help but notice her. She was a computer programmer, proficient in a dozen programming languages. She'd earned an associate's degree from Iowa Western Community College, and by 2012, she had her dream job as a programmer analyst at West Corporation in Omaha. She commuted an hour each way from her home in Macedonia, Iowa, a small town of just 400 people. But Cari's real pride and joy was her son, Maxwell. Max was 14 years old in 2012, and Cari rarely missed his sports games or band concerts. She was a devoted mother. She'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in her late 20s, but by 2012 she was stable on medication and thriving. Cari had 3 tattoos, an Aztec sun on her upper back, a yin-yang symbol and Chinese character on her thigh, and on her left foot another Chinese symbol. This one meant mother. In the spring of 2012, Dave Krupa was trying to start over. The 35-year-old auto mechanic had recently separated from his long-term girlfriend Amy Flora, with whom he had 2 children. He'd moved to Omaha and taken a job managing an auto repair shop. After years in a committed relationship, he was clear about what he wanted now. He wasn't looking for anything serious. He signed up for Plenty of Fish, a dating site, and made his intentions perfectly clear to the women he met. That spring, he started casually seeing a woman he'd met online. Shanna Elizabeth Golyar, who went by Liz, was a 37-year-old single mother of 2 who ran her own house-cleaning business. From the beginning, Dave told Liz he was dating other women. He wasn't seeking commitment. Liz said she was fine with that arrangement, but secretly she wanted permanence. She was possessive, constantly calling and texting Dave, jealous of his attention. Then, in October 2012, a woman walked into Dave's auto repair shop. She needed work done on her Ford Explorer. Dave couldn't help but notice her. She was gorgeous, he thought. There were sparks between them. But he was at work, representing his company, and he didn't feel like he could make a move. Then, weeks later, he stumbled upon the same woman on Plenty of Fish. Her name was Cari Farver. He reached out. Their first date was on the 29th of October, 2012. They went to a restaurant in Omaha. Dave later recalled that they were very enthralled with each other. During the date, Liz repeatedly called and texted him. Dave made his preference for Cari perfectly clear. After dinner, they returned to Dave's apartment, and that's when Liz appeared at the door, claiming she needed to collect some belongings she'd left there. In the hallway, the 2 women passed each other. 10 seconds. That's all it was. A 10-second encounter. Cari seemingly thought little of it, but for Liz Golyar, that brief passing sealed Cari Farver's fate. Over the next couple of weeks, Cari and Dave continued to see each other. She worked close to his apartment, and they'd meet up regularly. Neither was looking for anything serious, but there was potential there. Dave found himself reconsidering his no-commitment rule. With Cari, there was something different, he said. There was potential for that long term. On the 9th and 10th of November, Cari's Ford Explorer was vandalized in Macedonia. Phone records would later show that Liz made 6 calls to Cari's residence using *67 to hide her caller ID. On the 12th of November, Cari asked Dave if she could stay at his apartment for the week. She had a big project at work and didn't want to drive an hour home each night. Dave agreed. She arranged for Max to stay with her mother, Nancy Rainey, for the week. On the morning of the 13th of November, 2012, at around 7 a.m., Dave kissed Cari goodbye as he left for work. Cari was awake, using her laptop computer. She had a full day ahead of her at West Corporation. That was the last time anyone saw Cari Farver alive. Later that morning, around 11 a.m., Dave received a text from Cari's phone. It was bizarre. She was asking if they should move in together. Dave was taken aback. They'd only been dating for 2 weeks. He texted back, politely declining. Almost immediately, another text arrived. "Fine. I hate you. I'm dating someone else. I don't ever want to see you again." Dave was baffled. The tone had shifted so dramatically, so quickly. When he returned home from work that evening, all of Cari's belongings were gone from his apartment. Everything. Her clothes, her laptop, her personal items. It was as if she'd never been there. 2 days later, on the 15th of November, Cari's employer at West Corporation received a text message. It said that Cari was quitting her job. The message also recommended Shanna Golya as a replacement. That same day, Liz Golya applied for Cari's position. Over the next few days, the messages from Cari's phone escalated rapidly. "My favorite thing to do is stand outside and stare at you. I hate you so much that I want to drive in your heart." The messages were eerily specific, describing what Dave was wearing, what he was doing, sending photos and videos of him. "How's that coffee taste?" a message asked whilst he sat in a diner. On the 16th of November, Nancy Rainey reported her daughter missing to the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office in Council Bluffs, Iowa. She knew immediately that something was wrong. This wasn't like Cari. Nancy explained that Cari had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she was stable on medication. She wasn't the sort of person who would just walk away from her son, from her job, from her life. The police dismissed Nancy's concerns almost immediately. They believed Cari had stopped taking her medication and had voluntarily disappeared. It was a common occurrence, they said. Nancy insisted something was wrong. The texts she was receiving from Cari's phone were completely out of character. Cari was punctuation conscious, but these messages were riddled with grammatical errors. They were mean and hateful, and that wasn't Cari. Nancy begged via text to hear her daughter's voice. The calls never came. Max, who had just turned 15, tried to verify his mother's identity through Facebook. He sent 3 questions that only she would know the answers to. There was no response. He waited for his mother to come and get him, as the texts had promised. She never arrived. Thanksgiving came and went. Cari's birthday passed. Max's birthday. In December 2012, Nancy's husband Dennis passed away. Cari didn't attend the funeral. For Nancy, it was unthinkable that Cari would miss such an important family event. Something was desperately wrong. In January 2013, Dave spotted Cari's Ford Explorer in a parking lot near his apartment. He recognized it immediately. He'd worked on it, after all. He photographed the number plate and sent it to Omaha police. When officers searched the car, they found only a single fingerprint on a mint container. It didn't match Cari or anyone in the FBI's national database at the time. Months later, police downloaded the contents of phones belonging to Dave and Liz. But they failed to properly analyze the data. The evidence sat unexamined for years. If it had been analyzed immediately, the case could have been solved much sooner. But the harassment campaign was only intensifying. Dave changed his phone number multiple times. The messages continued regardless. He was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, he said. He could never relax, never let his guard down. He was constantly looking over his shoulder. The messages contained threats against his children, specific details about his life that terrified him. Liz was receiving messages too, supposedly from Cari. In August 2013, Liz's house was set on fire. All 4 of her pets were killed: 2 dogs, a cat, and a snake. Emails arrived purportedly from Cari, claiming responsibility for the fire. Dave's gun was stolen from his apartment. In January 2014, a brick was thrown through Dave's apartment window whilst he was with another woman. Amy Flora, Dave's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his children, was also being targeted. She received threatening messages. By now, years had passed. 15,000 emails, between 25,000 and 50,000 text messages. It was essentially a full-time job, 40 to 50 hours per week, spent tormenting the lives of everyone involved. 20 to 30 fake email accounts were created, all with variations of Cari's name. In total, more than 60 email accounts were involved. The case was relegated to the cold case shelf. Cari Farver had been missing for over 2 years. Her bank accounts showed zero activity, no transactions, no withdrawals. Nothing. The case languished as a missing person file with no active investigation. And all the while, Cari Farver's reputation in Macedonia was being destroyed. The small community believed she was a dangerous stalker who had abandoned her son. The gossip and judgment lasted for years. Nancy continued to receive cryptic messages from social media accounts supposedly belonging to her daughter, telling her not to look for her. The family endured holiday after holiday without Cari. Nancy never gave up hope, but as the months turned into years, it became harder and harder to believe they'd ever see her again. For Dave, life had become unbearable. He was living in constant fear. The harassment never stopped. The messages were relentless, always watching, always threatening. He'd put on 30 pounds. He was drinking heavily every night just to cope with the stress. And Liz, who he'd continued to see on and off, was always there, seemingly supportive, receiving messages herself from the woman they all believed was Cari. In the spring of 2015, Sergeant Jim Doty and Deputy Ryan Avis from the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office volunteered to reopen the cold case. They talked about Cari's disappearance from time to time in the office. Something about it nagged at them. Doty and Avis took complementary approaches. Avis worked to prove Cari was still alive. Doty worked to prove she was dead. Avis immediately recognized something crucial. It's not normal for adults to just up and leave and literally spend no money, he said. Cari's bank accounts had been completely dormant for over 2 years. In May 2015, the investigators interviewed Nancy Rainey. She was the first authority figure to validate her concerns. Nancy provided them with crucial evidence. A photograph of a check for $5,000, allegedly from Cari for furniture. The check was conspicuously signed Shana Golya. It was the first concrete connection between the two women who supposedly were strangers. That's when they brought in Special Deputy Anthony Carver, the Digital Forensics Administrator for Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office. Carver had volunteered for the position at $1 per year before being hired full-time. He would eventually donate approximately 3,000 hours to this case, even delaying his own brain surgery to continue working the investigation. Carver began analysing the 2013 phone downloads that had never been properly examined. Right off the bat, Tony was able to point out that Liz was posing as Cari, Doty would later say. But the evidence didn't tell them what had happened to Cari or where she was. Between 2012 and 2015, Liz had done an extraordinarily good job at hiding her electronic trail. When we picked up the case, Liz had learnt how to get better and better at hiding her trail, Carver said. For instance, she was using a website that allowed her to send emails and text messages on a certain day and time when she was with Dave. They would both receive messages at the same time from Cari. Neither suspected that the woman sitting beside Dave was the one sending them. Carver also found Liz had set up more than 24 fake email addresses, all with variations of Cari's name. He discovered photos on Liz's phone that were taken approximately 1 month before police had recovered Cari's vehicle. Liz knew where the car was before law enforcement even did. Carver developed custom software to analyze the terabytes of data. He scanned metadata and deleted files with painstaking precision. Being able to trace an IP address to a place Liz was actually laying her head was like finding the proverbial needle in a haystack, he said. But he did it. Thousands of threatening emails were traced directly back to Liz's residences, including the house that had later burnt down. The investigators also matched the mysterious fingerprint found in Cari's car back in 2013 to Liz Golyar. On the 4th of December, 2015, Liz walked into the sheriff's office voluntarily. She filed a harassment complaint against Amy Flora. She voluntarily allowed investigators to download the contents of her phone. It was the second time they'd done this, but this time they knew exactly what they were looking for. The next day, Liz shot herself in the thigh at Big Lake Park. She claimed Flora had attacked her using Dave's stolen 9mm Smith & Wesson. The timing was convenient. She'd just reported the gun missing the day before. Police immediately suspected self-infliction. But the investigators pretended to believe Liz's story. They asked her to help them catch Flora by getting incriminating evidence. Liz took the bait. Over the following year, from December 2015 through 2016, Liz sent 13 emails supposedly from Flora, confessing to murdering Cari. The emails contained details only the killer would know. They described Cari being stabbed 3 or 4 times, that she'd been stabbed in her own vehicle, that her body had been wrapped and burnt, that it had been disposed of in rubbish bags. And crucially, the emails mentioned a yin-yang tattoo on Cari's left hip. This detail had never been publicly disclosed. It was a matching tattoo Cari had got with her ex-husband back in 2009. Only someone who had seen Cari's body would know about it. The investigators traced all 13 confession emails back to Liz's devices. They had the evidence they needed for an arrest. But they still didn't have a body. They still didn't have the smoking gun. In 2016, Dave remembered something. He had an old tablet he'd owned since 2012. Liz had had access to it during their relationship. He provided it to investigators. In February 2017, Carver scanned through thousands of deleted thumbnails on a micro SD memory card found in the tablet. The card had also been in Liz's phone around the time of Cari's disappearance. And then he found them. A photo of a dead person's foot. On the top of the foot was a tattoo, a Chinese character. Nancy confirmed it was the exact tattoo on Cari's left foot, the symbol for mother. A medical examiner determined the foot belonged to a deceased person. There was also a photo of a dead person's thigh. It made me realize that Liz Golyar killed Cari Farver, and she's taking photos of her body, Carver said. Prosecutors would later describe them as trophy pictures that memorialize heinous acts as if it were some kind of accomplishment. The investigators then conducted a third search of Cari's vehicle. This time, they removed the seat fabric entirely. Cari's blood was found soaked into the passenger seat foam. DNA analysis showed the chances of it being anyone else's blood were 1 in 100 billion. They had their smoking gun. On the 22nd of December, 2016, more than 4 years after Cari's murder, Liz Golyar was arrested at her home in Persia, Iowa. She was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree arson. Her bail was set at an unusual $5 million. 1 month later, Liz waived her right to a jury trial. Her defense attorney later explained the reasoning. "We waived jury trial to move it up, so I could try this case, hopefully, before they'd find a body," he said. It was a calculated gamble that would backfire spectacularly. The trial began on the 10th of May, 2017. It lasted 10 days. Anthony Carver testified for 3 days on digital forensics. Dave Krupa testified, reading a fraction of the 12,000 emails he'd received. Nancy Rainey testified about her daughter's tattoos and the messages. The defense called no witnesses, focusing on the lack of a body, weapon, and eyewitnesses. But the prosecution had built an overwhelming case. She spent years tormenting many lives, spinning a web of deception to keep Cari alive so she wouldn't get caught, prosecutor Brenda Beadle said. 14 days later, at 9 a.m., Judge Timothy Burns delivered his verdict. Cari Farver did not voluntarily disappear and drop off the face of the earth, he said. Very sadly, she was murdered. The court finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant intentionally killed Cari Farver with deliberate and premeditated malice. Guilty on both counts: first-degree murder, second-degree arson. The courtroom erupted into loud cheers and applause. Nancy Rainey burst into tears. "She's got her name back," Nancy said. "It's not tarnished. She loved life. I just wish she could have had more of it." Liz Gollier was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 18 to 20 years for arson. Cari's body has never been recovered. Her son, Maxwell Farver, graduated from Iowa State University in 2021 with a degree in software engineering. He now works as an application developer, honoring his mother's legacy in technology. The three investigators established the Cari Farver Memorial Scholarship Fund in May 2019, supporting information technology students at Iowa Western Community College. The fund provides $2,000 annual scholarships. For nearly 4 years, the world believed Cari Farver was a dangerous stalker. The truth was the opposite. She's got her name back, and her legacy lives on.